All right. So my name is J.R. Logan, and I am the director of MakeHaven. And we've been very lucky to have Bruce, who's our presenter today, as a longtime volunteer and someone who brings to bear a long history of working in businesses and with entrepreneurs and banking, and so can help to teach others uh, what they can do to be successful as entrepreneurs. Most recently, he has become an official SBA, and that's the Small Business Administration coach. And so he also has the resources and training from them to support what he has to say. I will, with that very brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, who can give you a little more detail and nuance, and then we'll go into his presentation.
Thanks, JR. My name is Bruce O'Donnell. As JR said, I'm a coach with Small Business Administration, specifically SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. I started doing that work about a year or so ago, and have been just helping people in the New Haven area to get, with their business issues, with their startups. And I find that a lot of the stuff that we do is not necessarily talk people out of what they want to do, but kind of get them to think about it a little bit more, to determine, do I want to do this? Do I want to start a small business? Do I want to do this type of work myself? What we've found is, and what the purpose of today's course is a lot of times people haven't really thought through all of the different aspects of starting a business, of becoming an entrepreneur. And that's not to say that, if you go through this assessment that we're going to do today and everything is answered, you answer yes to everything, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be successful. Nor does, if you go through and answer no to everything, it doesn't mean that you're bound for failure or anything like that. In the work that we do at SCORE, a lot of it is just helping people, think through their ideas and really get a handle on what they want to do. So you go into something with your eyes open, so that you know what it is you're going to be looking for, what people are going to be expecting of you, and then from there move on and become a successful small business person, and hopefully grow your firm into being the next IBM or General Motors or Apple or anything like that. And that's certainly possible. We've had some people that I've had as clients at SBA who have gone on to start started as small businesses and have become very, very successful in their communities and providing jobs and providing services for their communities. So with that, today's topic is going to be the Entrepreneurship Readiness Assessment. I think Kate was kind enough to send out those links, and if you have that, that's fine. What we're going to do today is take a look at the 25 questions that are in this, and just kind of get a sense of, why is this question being asked? What do they want me to know? What should I be thinking of myself? And help you work through that. And if there's any questions, of course, please feel free to ask. Either text them to us or just fire away. If we get through this and you decide you want to have a more detailed discussion with me, please let me know. I've got, as we all do, I'm home. So, be more than happy to meet with you over the phone, via email, on a Google Meetup or Zoom or Skype or whatever you feel comfortable with, and we can talk through some of the questions and talk through what your business ideas are. I know some of you I've met with already, and Sophie, I think you're out there, and then we can move along and see where we're going and help you become successful. So with that as a background, these questions are pretty open-ended. And what I'm going to do today is kind of just go through. It's like, why are we having you think of this? If you want I guess an analogy for this type of assessment, a couple of years ago in the New York Times, there was a questionnaire. It was like, I think it was like 35 questions to determine if you can fall in love with somebody. I'm not looking for that today. But what we want to do is come up with 25 questions that'll help you decide whether or not you want to be an entrepreneur. So with that, JR, if you want to bring up the next screen.
Yeah, so I will bring that up. And Bruce, is there I'll share a link on the MakeHaven website so that others can access that. But is there a short link or directions to those who might be watching the video and so didn't get the email as to where they can access this assessment?
Sure. If you go to the SBA website and just go do the search and put in Entrepreneurship Readiness Assessment, you should come to this thing. And that's a little bit funkier or a little bit cooler because it's interactive, and you can go in and click the buttons, and then you hit a score the assessment button at the end, and it tells you that you're either going to be an entrepreneur or you ain't. But the reason I don't use the online version of it is because it's just too easy to go through and click all the buttons and either get really discouraged or get over optimistic. So we like to kind of do these things a little bit slower, kind of back in the pencil and paper age.
So somebody interested who's in the MakeHaven community might reach out to you, and you'd walk through it another time.
Oh yeah, sure, certainly.
Great.
Certainly.
And is everybody seeing my screen as Bruce talks rather than jumping over to him? If you're not and you want the screen to remain there, there's this little pin that will show up, and you can pin a particular screen and unpin a screen so that so you can maintain the presentation or the speaker if you prefer. So with that, Bruce, I turn it back over to you.
I'm not sure what you mean by a pin,
Yep. So
I'm not sure what you mean by the pin.
Yes. So if you are hovering, can you click on one of the screens on the side? And so it will bring up a central screen. And if you hover, you put your mouse in the middle of that screen, you should see two icons. One that is to mute or unmute, and one which is a little thumbtack.
Yep.
So that thumbtack,
yep.
So you can pin and unpin. And when you've pinned a screen, that screen will stay up even when somebody else is talking.
And pin. Okay, I just pinned you. Okay. Sophie, you see that? Sophie, you got it? She's there. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Go ahead, Bruce.
And also, I just noticed in the comments that Kate was nice enough to post the website for the URL for the online version of the assessment. So if you want to take it online after we finish here, then please feel free. So the first set of questions that we're going to look at are there's four sections. General questions, personal questions, your personal condition, and then skills and experience. And we'll walk through each of those. And if you have any questions about, why are you asking this question? What are you looking for? Please feel free to interrupt and let me know. So the first question is pretty simple. Do you think you're ready to start a business? And I'm going to guess that most of the people in this call are going to say yes to that one. And that's great. What we want to do is make sure that you've really thought about it. And, why do you think you're ready to start a business? And that's the, that's really the crux of this, is that what do you want to do? And how do you want to make your business successful? What do you want to do for a business? What do you want to either sell, or what service do you want to provide? And where are we going to go from there? Second question is, do you have the support of your business from family and friends? That's a very important component, because what we found in doing counseling at SCORE and when I started my own businesses a couple of times, it's like you're going to need a lot of psychic support, for this type of stuff. And if your family and friends are really not behind you, it's not that you can't do it. It's just going to make it a lot more difficult. It's going to be a lot more psychologically draining on you. And what we try to do is encourage people to really talk to their families, to get them to understand what it is that you're going to be undertaking. And it's especially true if you're the provider for your family. You want everybody to understand what it is you're doing. So the more time you spend explaining it to people, the more time you spend understanding it yourself, it's going to help you ultimately be more successful. The third one is, there's a lot of great stories behind the third one. Have you ever worked in a business similar to what you're starting? You kind of hope the answer to that is yes, but I've talked with a number of people, and probably my favorite one is a gentleman who's going to start a food truck. He's going to start a food truck and do breakfasts and lunch, because he figured, well, I'll be done by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll start work at about 7, and I'll work from 7 to 2, and that'll be wonderful. And we asked him, I said, well, have you ever worked on a food truck? And he said, no. I said, well, have you ever worked in a restaurant business? And he said, no. I said, well, before you go out and spend the $75,000 on the food truck that you're looking at, why don't you find somebody who's running a food truck and offer an internship with them, and they offer to intern for them, work for free for a month. And that month should be February. And the location should be down on the New Haven shoreline. And if after that month you decide that this is it, I want to run a food truck, after you spent the month of February standing outside serving tacos to people, great, let's go for it. But you need to have some basic familiarity with the business that you're trying to start, and with the business that you're going to run. And the more experience you have in that business, the better off you're going to be. I know we've got a couple of folks on the phone who are seamstresses, and I know you guys have worked in textiles and seamstress and sewing for a long time, and you're going to be successful at what you do. If I was to start a business with a sewing machine, I'd probably hurt myself. But that's where you want it. You need to know what it is you're going to be doing, and you need a basic understanding of the business that you want to start and that you want to work in. This should be more of your passion than it is just as a business. Fourth question is, would people that say you're entrepreneurial? What does that mean? That generally means that you're the one who wants to go out and find a solution. You're the one who wants to, take a problem and solve it, and look at it from all different angles and come up with different solutions for it. Whether that's going to be, in a service that you're going to be providing, whether it's going to be in a product that you're going to be making, are you willing to start from scratch and build up on your own ideas? Do you find yourself in situations where, what you're doing and how you're doing it kind of gets people to follow along with you, you know, and then we're going to do some leadership questions later. And to, you know, to get people to be able to follow, you know, what your lead is, and to come up with new ideas, to come up with new solutions, to come up with new products. You know, is that something you enjoy doing? Is that something you find that you do that in, you know, in real life, as we say, and that type of stuff. And then the last question in this section is, have you ever taken a small business course or seminar? The reason you want to do that is because, first of all, there's a lot of things you're going to have to know. You're going to have to know, first of all, your core business, but you're also going to have to be familiar with legal aspects. You're going to have to be familiar with accounting. You're going to have to be familiar with, you know, technical services, as we can call it, or you know, the resources that are available to you. Not that you're going to be an expert in any of these. You know, you're going to hire people that are, or you're going to work with people who are experts in that field. But what you want to know, you want to have a background in it, so that you understand what it is these people are telling you. You know, the inelegant term for it is you want to be unbullshittable. So that if somebody, a lawyer's trying to tell you something, or accountant's trying to tell you something, you understand what it is they're doing, and why they're taking that course. And if you don't, you need.
Excuse me, Bruce. Could
Yeah.
you repeat that? Could you repeat that word? I never heard that. And
Unbullshittable.
oh, and it's English. Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite
You got
English.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Catherine.
Good.
So anyway, that's you want to avail yourself of the things that are available. And at SCORE, or in Small Business Administration, there's a bunch of courses that you can take, and they're all free. They're working to get them online, which, you know, is something that some of us down at Small Business are trying to get more of. And they are local. There's a pre-business workshop that I'll probably mention a couple more times as we go through this, but they're in New Haven. They're at Gateway, and when we're allowed to do them again, you know, when we're through this through the COVID-19, then we'll, you know, they're down at Gateway. They're once a month. They're for like 9 or 8 to 12, and they really are a valuable resource, and we'll talk some more about those. So the next set of questions are more questions for you to answer for yourself. You know, the personal characteristics, and these questions are completely random. There's a reason for them, you know, and to really look inside yourself and determine, you know, do I fit these things? You know, am I a leader? You know, when I have a problem or I see something, there's a giant hand attacking me. When I see a problem, you know, do I come up with a solution that people sign on to? You know, do I get people? Can I harness the energy people have and get it to the point where we can come up with a solution, and people are willing to follow my lead on that. Seventh one is, do you like to make your own decisions? Which kind of goes into the eighth one. Do others turn to you for help in making decisions? And a lot of this is, you know, when you are running your own business, you're it. When there's a decision that needs to be made, you may turn to some advisors, and you may, you know, if you have some trusted advisors that you have along with you, that you talk to, you'll get their input on things, but the final decision is going to be yours. And if it's successful or not is pretty much your choice. It's going to be, you know, your activities that are going to make the decision successful or not. The other one, the other side of that coin is, do others turn to you for help in making decisions? Are you seen as a resource? Do people, come to you to help them solve problems? If they do, that's great, because that means that you're already a respected leader. That you're already a respected advisor, so that people will come to you and with help for their problems. And we run into many occasions where, I get people who come in for counseling or come in for advice, and we talk about, are you a leader? Do you like to make your own decisions? And a surprising number of them will say, well, not really. I want to work by myself. I just want to do research, or I want to build something and then give it to somebody else to work with. And that's not to say that you wouldn't be successful as an entrepreneur, as a small business person. It just means that you're going to need more help. It means that, every organization, even the small businesses that I've worked in or started, there's the inside person and the outside person. The inside person is kind of the one who comes up with the ideas, that comes up with the germs, that then become, go on to become products, or go on to become services that are offered. But then you also need, if that's the case, then you're going to need somebody who's the outside person, the sales guy, the salesperson, because you can have the greatest ideas in the world, and you can have the greatest products in the world, but if you don't have someone out there to help you, and if you don't have the ability to sell it yourself, you're going to need that kind of help. Brings us to the ninth one. Do you enjoy competition? For every great idea that you have, there's somebody else that's going to have one just the same. And you're going to have to come through and determine, why is mine better? What can I tell people that will make them see that my idea is the one that they want to go with? My product is the one that they want to use. And you have to have the self-awareness. You have to have the belief in yourself that you can do this, that you will beat out, your competitors. And that gives you a powerful leg up on actually going through and doing that. The next couple are my favorites. Is, do you have the willpower and self-discipline? Do you get up in the morning and you want to get to work? That you want to go work on your idea. You want to make a hat. You want to run a makerspace. That's your drive. When you get up in the morning, that's what you want to go do, and you have the discipline to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, and not at 11 o'clock in the morning, even if you're going to be there till midnight. That's the that willpower and self-discipline, is something, I can't tell you whether you've got it. You've got to answer that, for yourself. Planning. There's a horrible cliche that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And as awful as that is, it's true. That doesn't mean that plans aren't going to change. That means that doesn't mean that, we're in a situation like we were in now, that I guarantee you last fall nobody was thinking of. You need to be nimble to adjust to changing circumstances, but you also need to have a plan so that when those circumstances are over, that you can go back and say, okay, where am I? Where do I want to be? And how am I going to get there? That's the kind of stuff that you want to think of when you're building a business, when you're building a business plan. how are we going to, what do I need to do now? What's my next step? And then what's the step after that? And I just noticed that with this camera, the way it is, you're missing all these great hand gestures. You know, so planning is extraordinarily important when you're building a business, when you're starting a business. Next one is next couple are, do you like people?
Can I add something here?
Yeah, sure.
How do you how difficult it is right now to plan? We plan, but those are only within the prognostic area of what we know. And since there's so much uncertainty, I just find it very difficult to plan, because even shipping now is the only way for me to keep working, and I'm still working at home. People are not shipping, and that should be the time to ship, because everything is done through shipping. And
so you're having problems. You're having trouble getting people.
Maybe they don't find the boxes. They should be shipping their repair, and still it's slowing down. And so you plan, but every time things change. It feels like every time I plan, the carpet is removed from under my feet, and I have to keep being, creative and inventive to plan new things. And I'm good at it, but it's also exhausting. So I almost don't want to plan anymore.
There's an old saying, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. And I say, first you plan, and then you plan, and then you plan again, and then you adjust that, and you adjust that, and your plans can't be dynamic. They're always changing, because reality will teach you what works and what doesn't.
Sure, that's very true. And what you want to have is, I mean, yes, you have to be nimble in order to meet, changing circumstances and determining, I'm in this circumstance now, how long is it going to last? Where do I, how am I going to react to it? And those are all important things. And the ability to modify your plans as circumstances change is very, very important. But you need to start with a basic plan. And at some point you'll look at it, and then, the circumstances change back or whatever, and you go back to your plan, or you can go back to the parts of your plan. You go, okay, well, this isn't going to work anymore. A and B are fine, but C, not so much. I'm going to have to rethink how I want to do that third thing. And the plans are, as you say, the plans are always going to change. But you need to have a basic plan to go back to, just as a touchstone. You say, is this what I want to be doing? That's what you need to see. Hang on one sec. Okay. Where were we? Do you like people? Yeah. Do you get along with others? Again, and this goes back to the introvert extrovert type of thing. That's the if you're not at heart a people person, there's probably some industries you want to avoid. But the again, if you don't have that skill yourself, you're going to want to find somebody who does, or you're going to want to work on developing it, which is also possible. Hang on one sec. I just got to close the door. You can edit that out, Sharon. And the last one on that page, when people say you're outgoing, again, not a problem if you're not. It just means that's something you're going to want to think about. That's something you're going to want to work on, because any business that you're in, is essentially a people business. You're going to want to work with people. You're going to either want to provide a service to people, or you're going to want to sell them something. And that's where that ability to be an extrovert will it's just something else you have to think about for that. Any questions on what we've done so far on these things? Okay, let's go to the next section. Step 1. There you go. So these are just 2, 4, 5 questions on, what kind of work, what are you signing up to do when you decide you want to start a small business? And these are all questions that, again, there's no right answer to them. I mean, I know here it's yes or no, but what you want to be able to do is look at these questions and go, can I do this? I'm going to be working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week to run my business. For Monday through Friday, you may be working with clients. Saturday and Sunday, you're going to be doing bookkeeping and anything else that comes along. And that's just something to be aware of. That running your own business is not a 9-to-5 gig. There's always going to be something that you're going to have to be dealing with, whether it's a recalcitrant client, whether it's an employee that's having an issue, or anything, any number of other issues. But because you're the owner or you're the leader, people are going to be coming to you to handle that problem. And well, you don't necessarily have to be. You have to have a physical stamina in order to do that. If you're gonna, I've seen a number of many people who have, run themselves and their business into the ground. And generally, you run yourself into the ground before you run your business into the ground. You need to have some degree of physical stamina in order to do this, because you're going to be working long hours. You're going to be working, and you're going to constantly have demands on your time, either from suppliers, from clients, from other entities that you're going to have to deal with. And it does take some degree of physical stamina to do that. And what we've seen in a lot of instances is that one of the things I've talked to people about is get yourself a workout routine. I don't care what it is, but don't, do something for yourself. Set aside time for yourself in order to do that, because it will wear on you and it will wear you down. And there will be pressure. I mean, probably just one from my own experience is the sheer terror you have when the accounts receivable outstrip the cash on hand and payroll is due. So you sit there and throw the credit cards on the bed and go, all right, who's going to get paid? Who's not going to get paid? Where's the credit line going to come from? And where I can get some money? There's when you get to the point where you have employees and it's just not you that you're depending on, other people and their families are depending on you. That's a level of pressure that not a lot of people can deal with. And if you can, great. But the question here is, what you want to do is understand that's something you're going to have to deal with. And are you capable of dealing with that? And again, as I say, there's no one of the reasons why I don't actually have you sitting there checking boxes on yes and no and that type of stuff is I want you to think about these things. I want you to understand, what it's going to take to be there. And a lot of times that the people I talk to at SCORE, will say to us, you guys spend more time talking people out of going into business than you talk about, getting them into business. And we do. We do talk a lot of, and it's not talking them out of it. Most of the time, it's like, let's wait. Let's work on a couple of things first, and then you'll be ready to go into business, and you'll be ready to be successful at it. You can, you can certainly. I can go out tomorrow and hang out a shingle and say I'm a CPA again and that type of stuff, but it's not going to work, and I know that. The last couple is like, and this is something that's going to happen. Are you prepared to temporarily lower your standard of living until your business is firmly established? And are you prepared to lose a portion of your savings? That's not to say that you're gonna, and that's not to say that you're gonna lower your standard of living. Although you may find out you're not at Starbucks twice a day, maybe only once a day, but that's the those are the realities, and those are the things that we want you to think about. That you're going to do this. And I know this sounds incredibly bleak, and it's a lousy day outside, and we're all stuck in with coronavirus. So please go do something fun for yourself when I'm finished being a complete bummer here. So the last set of questions deals with, just skills and experience. And Jerry, if you want to move to that last page. There you go. And again, these are questions that to ask and answer for yourself. Do you know what skills you need in order to have a successful business? And we've talked about some of them, but it varies from business to business. And ask yourself, without anybody else around, do you have those skills? And if you don't, what do you need to do to get them? What do you feel you're lacking? And this next one is you sit there and go, and here we are, all on Skype and or Google meetups and all that, and all using computer, all using computers. But it's amazing the number of people that I talk to that don't feel comfortable using a computer. And they could be of any. The thing that's amazing to me is that they could be of any age. I kind of, just as from an ageism perspective, I expect people my age not to be as computer literate as my kids are. But when I talk to younger people, I go, well, I don't really know how to use a computer, and it's like, wait, what rock have you been under? That's a skill that you're going to need to have, and you're going to need to have it for a number of reasons. One is, any business today has to have an online presence. Any business today is going to be running some kind of basic accounting software. And you don't need to, you don't have to have the skills that some of the guys at guys and women at MakeHaven have, where you can sit down with a box of chips and build yourself a computer in 15 minutes. But you need to understand how to use them, and you need to understand what it can do, for what that tool is, and what that tool can do for you. Last couple of questions. Have you ever worked in a managerial capacity? Have you ever supervised people? Because as a small business owner, you're gonna have either employees, or you're gonna be hiring consultants. You're gonna be hiring people that are gonna be looking to you to tell them what to do, and you're gonna be looking to you to tell them whether they're doing it right or they're doing it wrong, and you're gonna have to provide that guidance to them as you go along. If it's something you've never done before, it's it's a different skill set. not one that it's not one that is impossible to gain, but it's somewhere it's somewhere between raising teenagers and herding cats. So that's when you're dealing with employees like that. And then, are you comfortable with that? You're going to have to hire people. You're going to have to train them. You're going to have to discipline them. And sometimes you're going to have to fire them. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you think you can do? And if it's not, it's just a skill that you're going to have to develop. You're going to, and the other thing, and this last one, the last section on question 24, do you feel comfortable delegating tasks? Are you willing to give somebody something to go do and then not follow them while they do it? You're going to have to give it to them and let them go off and work on it. And in some instances, they're going to fail. They're not going to do it the way you want. How are you going to react to that? I've seen so many instances of especially people who founders of businesses. Well, I can do this all myself, or I can do it faster. I can do it better. Well, if that's the way you're thinking about it, the person doing the task you're putting them under more pressure than you need to. If you can't delegate the task to them and let them go and do it, then you're just gonna follow them around, you haven't trained them well enough. You haven't shown them what it is you have to do. So delegating tasks to people is really a skill that has to be mastered. And it's not one that people have innately. We all want to, especially in a situation where we're in, in a maker space or something like that. I'm going to do this, and that's great. But you can't do everything yourself if you're going to be a successful business entrepreneur. You have to be able to delegate tasks to people. And that's something you have to look inside yourself and determine, can I do that? Do I feel comfortable doing that? And the last one is probably the toughest one. So if you discover you can't do it, can you walk away from it? And that can be the hardest thing you'll ever have to do is, walk away from a business that you've started. And how is that going to affect you? How are you going to think about that? Again, there's not a right or wrong answer here. All I'm trying to do is say, these are the kind of things that you need to think about before you decide to be an entrepreneur. And after all of this, I really hope you do, because it's one of the greatest challenges you can have, outside of raising kids or something like that. To be able to take an idea and carry it all the way through and to form a successful business is really an exciting thing to do. And I'm pretty sure that, if you think about these things and you go through them, go, okay, I can do this. I can build this thing, and I will build it, and I'm going to be successful at it. I mean, I know I've built a couple of businesses, and there's not a bigger thrill in the world, let me tell you. So if I haven't depressed all of you too much, is there any questions? Has anybody got anything they want to add, or any questions I can get to here? Just one quick point. If you want to talk about this some more, I'm at, I think JR has sent up a link that you can set up an appointment with me, and I'll come in and talk with you, or, and we can do it over any technology that you want, and do it that way. But let me throw it open for questions if anybody has any, or comments.
And just in case somebody's watching the recording, it's makehaven.org/SBA-coach. COACH, and that will take you to a page with some information about Bruce and a form you can fill out to request some one-on-one assistance.
Bruce, can you touch up on reinvesting on your?
Oh, somehow you got muted there, Catherine. We lost you.
Bruce, can you touch up on reinvesting into your business? And is there like a rule of thumb as far as like a percentage?
How much of your profits should go back into the business?
Right.
Everything that's left over after you've taken out what you need to live on. So, the one thing you don't want to do is you want to be able, you want to understand that you're going to have to pay yourself, and you're going to have to pay, obviously the people that work for you. But after that, if you retained earnings, that type of thing, probably should go back as an investment in the business. Hold back probably 15 to 20% of that number, so that you have it as a rainy day fund. But what kind of investments are you thinking of? You like, for you, is it like a new machinery or new capabilities?
I think at least 20%, and that's the low part should go back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have rainy days, you have machinery, exploration, trips that are business related, education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all good points, and certainly all good things that you're going to want to be aware of, or that you're going to want to think about and invest in. I mean, continuing education is very important for most industries. To understand new designs, to do research, that type of activity. Generally, that goes under the heading of new business. There's a wide bucket called new business development, and that can be everything from what does it take you to get a new client, to what does it take you to develop a new capability that will allow you to go get a new client. So that's the type of thing that you always want to be investing in and always be aware of.
Is there? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, continue.
Okay, is there in this season of plague a special fund where the small business could receive help?
Yes,
like
there
very
is.
small business like myself.
Yep. Yes, there's going to be part of the stimulus package that I believe is being voted on this afternoon, that the feds are coming up with, is going to have a large chunk of it for small businesses. And as that becomes, as what the particulars are of that become available, I can put some stuff up on the Make Haven website, or I'll give it to JR and he can put it wherever is appropriate.
We could do a session and perhaps just share some of the updates that are relevant.
Maybe in a week or so, when this starts to flesh out. I know a couple of the ideas that I've heard have been loans, but the caveat on the loans is that if you have people working for you and you retain them, during this period, the loan will probably be forgiven. Now, that's not for sure, and they're still working on the particulars of that. But yeah, as that stuff comes out, sure, we can do another session, or I can, as I get information, I'll make it available to everyone.
So
that would be great.
Bruce, I know there might be another question in there. I did want to get some questions kind of specific to the list and the readiness. So I'm gonna jump in with that, and then we're gonna go back to general questions, which might be more timely.
Okay.
So one of the things is, if people watch this and they didn't feel like they fit all of these criteria, but they still have a burning desire to explore entrepreneurship, what would you say their approach should be? Is it, you had mentioned going and trying things out. Are there other resources or community assets that you would say are available for somebody who, do you think it is possible to build some of these skills? And what should they do?
Sure. Let me take them in the order that I remember them. There are a lot of resources available through SBA and through SCORE. I mentioned earlier the pre-business workshops, and what that is a number of people, individuals will come in, lawyers, accountants, marketing people. And give you a quick overview of what it is a quick overview that's in more depth than this is today, of what are the kind of things that are available to you, and what are the kind of things that you're going to have to know. There's a couple of, the next time we can get into the site down at MakeHaven, there is some literature down there that talks about a lot of this stuff. But if you go through these, the particular readiness assessment questions, and you honestly see something that you don't have, well, then it's then it's a matter of, okay, how can I develop this skill? And all of these things, except for possibly being an introvert or an extrovert, is something you can work on. It's just something that, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you need to be aware that this isn't your strength. This isn't your sweet spot. But if you know that, then you can understand it better. If you know that, then you can either work on it, or you can move it to where it is comfortable for you. That answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to give people some, because there was a long list, and it would be very few people who could answer them all out of the gate with absolute certainty. So I imagine the process is being cautioned and having your expectations set right, and knowing where you need to work on yourself. So I know that there was,
that's very true. And also, if you do need help with this stuff, or you have questions about it, please reach out to me. I'm available, via email or any other things, any other way you want to get together.
There's another question from the audience. Yeah.
Can I pop in for a second here?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
I used to teach a course called Electronic Business Modeling, Simulation, and Tracking. And I've taught many people to build a model of their business and project out how it's going to do over 5 years' time. And then I sat down with a lot of people who were thinking about starting up a business. So I would sit there, and without injecting any information about their business, I'd ask them a whole series of questions. And I'd plug them into the model. And then I'd have another appointment with them later on, another week or two later, and I'd run the simulation on it. And I would be able to see, based on what they were thinking, how much money did they need to start up? Are they going to bleed the company for their own salary to start? Are they going to go to a bank and ask for startup funds, or look for other people to invest? And if it was a pizza business, how many pizzas you got to sell per week to break even and pay everybody what they have? How many pizzas do you got to sell per week to make $50,000 a year? How many pizzas can your oven make in a day? And, and is it seasonal? And then you got operating. So anyway, it was really fun, because their first idea about the finances of this whole thing was a total disaster. But after we sat down in front of the model, we looked at the simulation and we looked at the charts and graphs, we were then able to go back and make some adjustments on their ideas and say, well, how long do you want before you're actually making money? You're breaking even. You want to do that in 1 year time, 2 year time? Well, this is what you got to do. You got to adjust your ideas and change your goals. That was very helpful. So I'm going to ask you this one question. Is there anybody in the community that's doing that for people who have business ideas, who can actually do a financial projection over time in charts and graphs. And then I'll disconnect my voice now.
Well, first of all, thanks for that. So those are great ideas, and I'd be more than happy to have you bring that down to MakeHaven and share it. And also we will get in a plug for the second part of this seminar series, Business Planning 101, which it touches on exactly the things that you were talking about. It's like, how much money do I need to make? How much money do I want to make? How much money do I need to make? And how am I going to do it? And that gets all into the more formal, business plans that we help people put together. There are, I'd love to see the one that you developed. There's some online that we use. There's a website called bplans.com. That's kind of a repository of business plans, and also some templates and things that you can use. And then there's, I think there's a link off of that called Live Plans, that does all the templates for you. It lets you input into some shells and moves it along, fills out the spreadsheets for you, so the questions you're trying to answer are exactly the questions you're posing, which is, how many pizzas do I need to make in order to send my kids to college? That's those resources are out there, and JR has asked that we take a look at having a couple of courses on how to do a business plan, that was certainly something we can talk about in that series.
Great. So we are coming up near the end of the hour. There's a couple folks I know. Semi's on the line. If there's somebody who hasn't had a chance to ask a question, who has a question, feel free to just jump in now. But I think I'll ask you one last framing question, Bruce, and then we can come to a close. And that last question is, as you described, there's this other step, which is a business plan. But what is, for somebody who's not familiar with the startup arc, somebody who has now, they've taken the assessment and they've decided they're working on their weaknesses, or they've achieved a high enough score that they take the next step. So what's the digest novel version of that arc of getting yourself up to speed? What are the next steps they might expect from these sessions or from the process in general?
Okay, sure. So one of the things that you're going to be asked if when you talk to anyone and you're doing a startup is, what's your business plan? And that's everything from your elevator speech, which is you've got 30 seconds of somebody's time and you need to explain your business to them, to I need to go get some financing to start my machine shop, and the bank is going to want to see a 125-page presentation of why it is that's going to convince them to invest in me. What we can do, and the way I've seen this be successful, is, as with all things, it's iterative. Let's start with a one-page summary of what it is you want to do and how it is you want to do it. And then from that, we build on it to get into, what are the finances that are going to be required? At what point do I know I need to buy a second pizza oven? That type of stuff. And that's where the business plans come in and lets you game out, if my growth rate is X, what are the resources I'm going to need to support that growth rate? And I'll give you a little hint: when you're starting, you're supposed to lose money, and if you don't, then you've got a great business idea. But generally, you want to understand that you're going to be spending money before you start to make money. and how you're going to plan for that. So that's just something that we can talk about as we get into the business plan process. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there, and I can certainly help people guide them as to where those are.
Well, fantastic, Bruce. Thank you for that's a good wrap up, and thank you for doing this session. We're at our hour, so I think I'll wrap up formal activities, stop the recording, and then there might be some lingering questions from folks. If you have time to answer those, that would be a good time. But this has concluded the hour, and thanks again. And I look forward to the next sessions that we will be putting together.
Great, thank you.